Pardonnez-moi, chers amis. Allow me to introduce myself. Marc-Antoine Charpentier, humble servant of His Majesty Louis XIV and composer of music. At the request of my king, I wrote this cantata, an epithalamium, in 1694 for the wedding of the Duke of Bavaria to the daughter of the King of Poland. Truly an international event. And because it was in the interest of my king to do so, I chose a poem to praise and flatter the bridegroom, in Italian, of course. Allow me to translate it for you. O glorious heir of the Bavarian throne, in whose august face the world admires both the light of majesty and the lightning of fury. As I was saying, my cantata was written to celebrate the second marriage of Maximilian Emmanuel, who became Duke of Bavaria in 1679 at the age of 17. The Duke is very ambitious, and his court here at Munich is in the very center of European geography and politics. Here to the west is France and Louis XIV, the richest and most powerful man in Europe. Our king and the Duke are associated twice by marriage. My king's son married Marie Christine of Bavaria in 1680. And even earlier, the king's brother Philippe, the Duc d'Orléans, married Elizabeth Charlotte of Bavaria. Elizabeth Charlotte is large, strong, and outspoken, but very popular. They say that when she is not out hunting, she writes indiscreet letters to her German relatives. Although her husband, who prefers the company of boys, feared that he would never be able to make love to such a robust woman, he seems to have succeeded well enough. They have 3 children, although they now sleep in separate rooms here in the palace. But enough gossip. Here to the east of Bavaria is Vienna, home of the Emperor Leopold. Our Duke also has close ties to Leopold. They became allies during the war against the Turks, and in 1685, the Duke married Leopold's daughter, Maria Antonia. She died in childbirth in 1692. But their son, Joseph Ferdinand, became logical heir to the Kingdom of Spain. And by special arrangement, the Duke became governor of the Spanish Netherlands. Here to the north is Poland, home of King John III, who is very ill. I wrote my cantata for the second marriage of our Duke to the daughter of the Polish king. The Duke is now in a fine position. Please, I have some engravings I would like to show you. I dare not show you this one. But here we see our bridegroom, Maximilian Emmanuel, who made his reputation with a reckless and bloody but successful siege of Belgrade in 1688. Today, he is just as famous for his lusty stable of lively mistresses. And here is a delightful engraving of our Austrian Emperor Leopold, father of Maximilian's first wife. He is in the Spanish dress customary at court. His family is intimately related to the royal family of Spain by marriage through several generations. And this is our noble John III of Poland, father of Maximilian's second wife, the bride of my cantata. And here you see the French court assembled for the marriage of Louis XIV's son, the Dauphin, to Princess Marie-Christine of Bavaria. The Dauphin is pleasant but lazy and has a strange taste for ugly women. The princess is indeed ill-favored. With discretion, the artist has made the royal couple barely perceptible. And voila, my favorite, we are playing my overture in the reception room at Versailles. At the right is my student and patron, Philippe, Duc de Chartres. He is entertaining a gathering of young ladies. The pretty one on the end looks very much like Teresa Sobieska, the bride of the Duke for this wedding cantata. Since the Duke enjoys the company of young ladies, I decided to use 2 lovely soprano soloists who flatter him in the next movement. Heaven does not have such stars. A man of equal merit has not been born.
Mr. Charpentier, why were you chosen as composer of this wedding cantata?
For purely musical reasons. At least, that is what I was told by my patron. Because I was trained in my youth in Italy by Maestro Carissimi, I have a certain flair for the Italian style, in advance of other French composers, I should like to think. Those Bavarians have always had a taste for Italian music, especially operas and cantatas.
Does that explain your Italian text?
Precisely. I am not a fool. I realize that my choice as composer offers certain political advantages both to the Duke and to my king. The Duke is governor of the Spanish Netherlands and hopes to become ruler of Spain. He needs a friendly passage between the two territories. And by offering my services, our king can court the famous military talents of the Duke. I am the perfect choice as composer. Of course, I also have a personal contact. Madame, the robust and delightful Elizabeth Charlotte of Bavaria. You see, I am music teacher to her son, Philippe, the Duc de Chartres. An unruly, but not untalented lad.
Mr. Charpentier, your cantata combines the drama of Italian music with the grandeur of French music, like that of Lully. Were you his student?
His student? I could have been his teacher. My skill is greater, and my taste is far superior. Jean-Baptiste Lully was a scoundrel and a pig. He ate himself to death, you know. 25 years ago, when I returned from Italy, Lully was one of the first to realize my talent and to fear it. He used his influence with the king to secure a monopoly on opera. I was banned from writing serious dramatic music. But, to my good fortune, Molière, who had also been deprived by Lully's artistic gluttony, invited me to write music for his plays. Our collaboration at the Comédie Française brought my music to the attention of the public here in Paris and led to my appointment by the Duchesse de Guise and later by the Duc de Chartres. But 10 years ago, Lully's jealousy worked to my advantage. I had applied for an appointment as composer to the king here at Versailles, and surely would have outshone Lully. To persuade me to withdraw my application, I was offered an annual pension from the king for life. I could not refuse.
As an admirer of your fine oratorios and dramatic music, may I ask why you chose such a bad text? What made you stoop to the phrase, "Heaven does not have such stars"?
Quite frankly, I had no choice. The poem came with the assignment. Although I admit that it is an impoverished piece of poetry, this Epithalamium follows a long tradition. The title itself is Greek, meaning just outside the bedroom. In ancient Greece, wedding poems were sung by children at the door of the bridal chamber. The Romans observed the same custom, but their songs tended more towards the salacious or obscene. This traditional form provided a model for my Epithalamium, although the realities of modern politics have given it a new meaning and an obvious practicality. My Epithalamium is a gift from the King of France to the Duke of Bavaria, a musical celebration of a special event, like that painting. It was painted last year to commemorate the marriage of the Duc de Bourgogne, Louis XIV's favorite grandson, to Marie Adelaide of Savoy. The ceremony took place in the king's drawing room at Versailles. And notice the way in which the artist has flattered the wedding party. He has made the king the tallest figure right in the center of the painting, dressed in gold. And notice my patroness, Elizabeth Charlotte. Her pearls and diamonds make her seem very handsome in spite of her triple chin and drooping bosom. But in all fairness to Madame, she is a delight in conversation. I understand that she and the Duc de Berry giggled all through the wedding feast, both of them winking at his little wife, and that after supper, the king escorted the entire wedding party to the bridal chamber so that everyone could view the conjugal bed trimmed in Venetian point lace a foot deep.
Still another way to flatter the bridegroom.
Yes, but somewhat more subtle than the next aria in my cantata. O illustrious and unforgettable shades, who give glory to history, accept and acknowledge, O great heroes, a hero greater than any of you.
Mr. Charpentier, may I present a contemporary performer who sings your aria, Mr. John Casey.
Bonjour.
Bravo, Monsieur Casey. Your performance would have pleased the Duke.
I feel privileged to sing your music, but I have a couple of questions I would like to ask you. Could you clarify what you mean by ombri illustri memorabili, illustrious and unforgettable shades?
I am referring to the heroes of the past, such as Julius Caesar, Charlemagne, or more recently, the Duke's new father-in-law, King John III of Poland. He saved Vienna from the Turks. The Duke is a legitimate heir to this glory. As a young man, he too was feared in battle by the Turks and was called the Blue King because of his blue Bavarian uniform. My king, Louis XIV, is attracted to such military expertise and would like to have a strong ally in his struggle with the Austrians.
But your king miscalculated. 10 years after you wrote this cantata, the Duke was defeated by the Austrians and was even forced to abandon Bavaria. He retreated here to France for protection. The Duke turned out to be a liability rather than an asset to your king.
Fascinating. I had no idea my cantata would be connected to so complex a history. Won't you have some champagne?
Thank you. But your champagne has gone flat.
I prefer the traditional champagne without those silly bubbles. I regard this young Dom Perignon as a chemist, not a vintner.
That's very nice, I agree. But I have another question concerning the trio in your cantata. Cingon di nobil certo, l'oliva, il lauro, il mirto. Crown him with the noble wreath, the olive, the laurel, the myrtle. Why all the vegetation?
Classical literature mentions 3 different leaves that were used to crown heroes. The olive, sacred to Athena, the goddess of wisdom, is the symbol of peace. The laurel, sacred to Apollo, is the symbol of victory. The myrtle, sacred to Venus, the goddess of love, is associated with conjugal felicity and childbirth. My epithalamium attempts to ennoble the Duke by applying this classical imagery, very much like that painting in the palace. The artist has associated the king with the sculpture in the foreground, classical, of course, and the architectural details in the background. We enjoy this same grandeur classique in our daily lives here at the palace. Monsieur Casey, it puzzles me that you are still performing my wedding cantata almost 300 years after I wrote it. Don't you have composers of music in your own time?
Oh, of course we do. But we like to perform music from earlier periods as well as contemporary music. We're fortunate that the manuscript of your cantata was never destroyed, so that we can still perform it today.
But don't your composers resent that they have to compete with me and all other composers who ever lived?
I suppose many do, and perhaps rightly so. Our musical organizations, symphony orchestras, opera companies, choral societies, tend to be conservative. Most would rather perform the safe and proven music of the past than risk a performance of contemporary music.
Cette viande est froide, apportez-moi une autre. And what is the occasion of your performance? Do you have a duke who is being married?
No. We don't require a special occasion to perform your music, such as a royal wedding. Rather than depend on a single patron, we need many supporters who come to public concerts or watch television.
You will pardon my saying that the staging of your concert appears quite drab and ordinary to my taste. All of you are dressed in black and seated in black chairs. You have no dancing, no festivity to please the spirit.
Yes, over the years we have separated the arts. Most music is performed in concert, intended for the ear rather than the eye. I suppose we have lost much of the splendor of your time in our quest for perfection in sound.
Yes, I must compliment the polish of your performance. Merci. Your musicians play with great precision, but I am surprised that they use musical instruments so much like those that I use in the 17th century.
No, thank you. Our modern musical instruments are really quite different from yours. The instruments that we are using for your cantata are reproductions copied from antique instruments of your time that today are preserved in museums. Our modern violins use metal strings that are wound much tighter than these. They play more brilliantly, but not as sweetly as this one. Modern flutes are silver with many more keys. They too have a more brilliant sound. And our modern trumpets have valves so that they can play more notes in a greater variety of keys. and we normally use the piano instead of the more delicate harpsichord.
Monsieur Casey, although I prefer our classical style, I admire your perspective, and I toast your delightful performance.
And in your music, the world admires both the light of majesty and the lightning of fury.
Merci.